just before Deputy Aylward commences, I neglected to welcome also Mr. Brendan Gleeson, who represents the department in this area and has been in front of us before, and also Senior Inspector Jerry Greeley, also from the Department of Agriculture. So obviously members can be aware, and questions can be directed to those two representatives as well. I have a number of clarification points I'll ask after Deputy Burke's questions, but I'll let Deputy Aylward, who's been waiting, go.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman, and I welcome the board. I suppose since I came on PAC, I suppose this is the first time I've been contacted by so many people with disquiet over the management of Greyhound Board. The last couple of days in particular, I've got more phone calls from my own constituency and outside. And I'm talking about the ordinary people, the breeders, owners and trainers of the industry, and how disappointed they are and worried about the situation that they find themselves in and the future of greyhounds and greyhound racing and greyhound breeding in the country. And I just want to ask at the outset, the make-up of the board. Who appoints the board and what way are they appointed first and foremost? Can you explain the structure of the board?
Okay. At the moment, Deputy, there's 6 board members and a chairman. When I was appointed to the board, the minister of the day, through an interview process, I was appointed, and one other board member. The other 5 board members have been appointed through the PAs. They were either appointed or reappointed in December 2016.
Can you explain the PAs? My understanding is they get so many names and then they make a recommendation to the minister. And the minister then appoints from the recommendations. Am I right in that?
My understanding, Deputy, is that the PAs recommended 10 people that they felt were suitable for board positions, and the minister or ministers selected 5 out of the 10.
Are they experienced people with greyhound knowledge and greyhound breeding and greyhound racing? Is that being looked at? Would you say the board are experienced people and have the capabilities of running the greyhound business and have the professionalism to run it?
Well, I've stated many times, Deputy, that since December 2016, and I'm not taking from any previous board, I'm serving with people of exceptional business acumen and quality. As I said,
we talk about business that run the greyhound. I mean, financial lenders are talking about the greyhound business and survival of the greyhound business.
All aspects of it. If he'll allow me to use his name, my colleague Pat Creed. Pat is CEO of Bank of Ireland Finance in his day job, but he's a greyhound owner and has been for many years.
How long are you on the board, Mr. Creed?
December 15.
Okay.
Sorry, December 15. Sorry,
okay.
Chairman. My mistake. December 15. The 5 members were yeah. So, as an example, Pat Creed is a highly successful businessman, but he's a greyhound owner. And that is true. I think 6 of the 7 of us on the board are greyhound owners.
And I ask, what length of time when they are appointed, what many years is the term of service?
Well, under the new legislation, it will be confined to 2 3-year terms.
3-year terms?
2 3-year terms for the board members and 2 5-year terms for the chairman.
Just for clarity purposes, Mr. Creed wouldn't have been on the board at the time of 2015. He came in the last month. Would that be correct?
In December, sorry, I said.
So he has nothing to do more or less with these figures and these accounts. As in he wasn't on the board.
No, but I think he was making the point.
But he wasn't on the board.
He wasn't on the board.
Okay, just to make that point.
Members longer than the 2 terms reappointed that are in breach of guidelines. There's more than 2 3 years, which is 6 years, obviously.
Yeah. No, there is no legislation, Deputy, that I'm aware of at the moment that confines members to serve 2 years, 2 terms only.
I thought you said that a minute ago.
No, it's part of the new legislation that has come out of the Endicott report.
Right, are they members there longer than 6 years then, continuously?
Yes.
How many?
1.
1.
Yeah.
Is that normal? That's not normal practice that persons stay that length of time.
Oh, it is. It's not a precedent.
But is it good practice? Do you think it's good practice?
Well, again,
And no disrespect to the person involved, because I don't even know who it is.
again, as I say, Deputy, it's outside our remit who was appointed to the board. We're not self-appointed.
Are they political appointments then?
The last 5 appointments came through the PAS, and I don't believe that. I think the PAS wouldn't like to believe that there were political appointments.
Okay.
They went before a panel of people and 10 names, and I don't know who the other 5 were.
Right.
How long is that board member serving?
He's on his 3rd term.
Well, how many years?
I believe 9 years.
Okay, I just want to clarify that, because modern day boards and all that do not allow people to stay on that into time, and they move on for fresh blood and fresh people. I say again, no disrespect to the person involved. I don't know. I want to ask you about the executive then. Who appoints the executive?
Yeah, the board appoints the CEO,
Right.
and the CEO appoints his team.
Right. Okay. So it is the board, the CEO then has to say on who down the line. The CEO is appointed by the board, and then down the line is appointed, the CEO appoints the rest down the line.
Yes.
Through normal process, interviews and et cetera, experience. And all.
Yeah, it wouldn't be unusual for the CEO of the day to invite 1 or 2 board members on in the final stages of
I want to ask then, why is the 2015 accounts only coming before the Controller General now a year and a half, well, a year and 5 months behind? So why are they not up to date, and why is it that length of time? And will this 2016 will not come available until 2 years' time again?
On the 2016 accounts, and then I'll hand it over to Mike on the 15. On the 2016 accounts, again to try and have more transparency, we issued interim accounts on the last day of March with an interim statement. So from effectively, our accounts have been in the public since the end of March of 2017 for 16. Mike has indicated that he hopes to present that the audit will be complete by the end of June for 2016. So I don't see any delay on the 2016 accounts.
Yeah, because it was raised here, so why the accounts with the Controller General, and he said that we're waiting for you to present them, and it looked like you were pushed to present them rather than present them voluntarily. Now, when you ask these questions,
Mike, would you like to comment?
Maybe I'll just comment on that. In 2016, Michael put in a process where he got additional financial resources and put in a new process in the business. So it's expected that process will actually lead to accounts. All the field work has been completed on May 1, and the expectation is that the accounts will be delivered to the CNAG by the end of June at this point in time. But there are some issues still to be resolved, though. I wouldn't want through the chair to make that an absolute hard date, but there's good progress has been made with the 2016 accounts.
can I ask you just what I said at the beginning about the disquiet that I got from people and complaints from the ordinary, we say, dog breeder and dog. Can I ask you to make comment on why they're so angry and so on? There's so much disquiet there. Can you give a reason as a board and as an executive to know why that feeling is out there, and why there's a lot of noise about what's going on and quiet about what's going on, and not happy with the way the direction of the Greyhound Board is going at the moment and the future of Greyhounds? Can you make a comment on that in general before I move into other questions?
I accept that there is a negative comment out there. In my opening statement, I highlighted, as a board, we're after having to make tough decisions. Tough decisions, Deputy. People find it very hard to accept tough decisions. It's often hard to make tough decisions, but we had a job to do. And again, you know, I can take you back. When I came on board, we had a $2.5 million IOU that was there from 2005 that had to be paid to Dundalk Stadium, a private stadium. We had to pay that in 2012. It was a legal binding agreement. We had to put a small investment in Clonmel and Youghal Track. We had 3 High Court cases that were there before my time, had to be dealt with. We had a serious deficit in our defined benefit pension scheme, as everybody who had a defined benefit pension scheme had. they were the kind of issues that had to be dealt with. We didn't have the kind of money we wanted to invest in marketing, to invest in IT, to invest in prize money. And that plus the tough decision of selling Harold's Cross has absolutely brought adverse publicity to the board. But I would love to be starting off now as chairman of the board, towards where I started off 6 years ago. It's a clean business now. It will have effectively no debts. It will be in a very good position going forward. It's after taking a lot of hard decisions to get that to that.
The industry seems to have suffered, though, and the ordinary breeder that seems to have suffered in the interim while this was going on. And there's a lot of people going out of greyhounds and disappearing out of it. And if we don't put back money into it and revitalise it again, you won't have an industry.
Well, it's our absolute intention to reinvest in the industry earlier rather than later. We're aware. The first thing we would like to do in conjunction with the executive is we'd like to do prize money, give our stadia, who's been starved for investment over the last 5 or 6 years, a bit of a facelift. We need to invest in IT. We need to invest in marketing and promotion. And we do believe that we will build the business back up again quite quickly.
Okay, I want to go to Harold's Cross. I noticed the big debate at the moment, and as we come in there today, we have a group outside protesting, and we had a presentation here arranged by our chairman a couple of weeks ago here in the hall, and we all attended. I was attended anyway, and to said at that meeting that the debt was no problem, and that the people who were there, I'm not professional enough to know that, said if they were in control, they'd handle that debt and keep Harold's Cross and keep Harold's Cross going. Are you happy with the sale of Harold's? I presume the deal is done, and I know Deputy Buck asked this. The deal is done, so you haven't made a deal on the sale with the Department of Education on the sale of Harold's Cross. You can't disclose much money. Is it going to reduce your debt and by a lot, or by a percentage, or are you going to be viable after this?
Mr. Deputy, through the chair, I think we're at a point in. We have accepted an offer from the Department of Education through the circular 17-216 route, and having received that, there are a number of steps to bring the matter to a conclusion. And over the coming weeks, we hope that we'll get there, or over the coming probably 2 months, that we'll be able to bring that to finality.
Well, in hindsight, as a board, are you happy that, or an executive, are you happy that you did so much investment in Limerick and then you had to sacrifice Harold's Cross to pay one to pay for the other? And then Harold's Cross was your biggest, third biggest income fundraiser or income coming into the Greyhound Board. I believe, according to the figures I have, it was a profitable system, and it was working, making money. And it's like selling the gold and silver, selling the silver to pay for the.
Obviously, when I joined the organisation, we looked at what kind of a commercial state the organisation was in, and my role as defined by the chairman was to act, or by the board in getting the job, was to act in the best long-term interests of the industry. And debt was a massive burden. It was actually like a dark shadow over the organisation. And I know Deputy Burke talked about farmers selling bits of land, and I come from the country and I'm familiar with that. But the reality was the only asset, apart from Shelburne Park, that IGB could turn into significant money to alleviate our banking problem was the sale of Harold's Cross.
Was Harold's Cross sacrificed?
Pardon?
Was Harold's Cross sacrificed?
Perhaps you, Deputy, you could use those words, but the organisation cannot or did not or will not have a viable future until the debt burden is removed. It has to operate with financial stability, because if it doesn't have financial stability, it will have no future. And as the chairman outlined in his earlier statement, there are a lot of people very dependent on on this for a livelihood and for entertainment. There are 800 people working in this business.
Do you think, as in hindsight, that you handled the situation of the sale well, if you call it a sale? I'm told that there's a board on Harold's Cross that weren't even notified. I was told that a week before some of you met him and guaranteed him you keep it open for another 12 months, and the following Monday there was padlocks on the gates, and a lot of stuff was removed even that Monday morning, so that it couldn't be viable or workable. Is that the way to treat people, treat a board, without consultation, without going through the full system? It seems to be dictatorship rather than consultation.
Deputy, just before he answers that question, can I just go back to the sale of Harold's Cross?
Yeah,
just
okay,
please.
No problem.
I think the sale of Harold's Cross is the future for the greyhound industry, because once and for all this legacy debt that has killed the industry is now resolved. The second thing I'd say is, from a commerciality point of view, I know of no business that is proximate to itself, a couple of miles away from itself, between Shelburne and Harold's Cross, that's closed 4 and 5 nights a week. 2 premises closed 4 to 5 nights a week, and they're right beside one another. If that was a commercial organisation, that would be merged, and that's what the plan of Dublin is. Now I'll let Sean take the question on Harold's Cross.
If I can add to Mr. Creed's comments, Deputy, it's not mine.
Is it off?
No, yeah, it's not mine.
Okay, you needed that break. Go on.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, for giving it to me.
Time for reflection.
There's no need for reflection on Harold's Cross in my world. But anyway, as you outlined, Deputy, we did meet the Dublin Goba in a meeting in Naas. We laid out the picture to them with absolute clarity that Harold's Cross would be sold, and it was needed to solve the debt problem. That was made very clear to the people at the meeting on that day. Subsequently, having discussed it with the chairman, an offer was made to allow racing continue in Harold's Cross until the end of the year. The Dublin Goba wanted that letter in writing, or wanted that commitment in writing. They wouldn't take my word for it. That what we said. We said that on account of the bank we could not give a letter in writing to anyone about the future. So we communicated to them that that was the case. So the board met. There was the threat of a picket at Shelburne Park the next Saturday night. The board met and discussed the matter, and we then made a final offer to Dublin Goba if they'd accept our word that we guarantee them racing to the end of the year. They did not accept our offer, and it was made clear to them that then non-acceptance of this offer and continuing picketing of Shelburne Park would lead to the closure of Harold's Cross. Now, looking back on it now, there was things IGB could have done better in it, Deputy. But we did. Well, can I finish?
Well, yeah, but I'm entitled to ask for clarification. I'm the chair.
Also, okay.
What could you have done better?
I'll answer that when I'm finished my point.
No problem.
That's okay.
Please do.
This is here to answer questions which are being put with respect.
No, right, but can I finish?
Well,
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, Mr. Brady, work away.
it's common practice, with respect, it's common practice that people, especially the chair, can interject and seek clarification. So the chair deserves respect. If a question is put, it should be answered.
Okay, Mr. Brady, go ahead.
Which question do I answer? Do I answer Deputy Aylward or you?
Mr. Aylward, and then you can come to mine at the end, and we will go back to Mr. Aylward. I was only looking for clarity.
All right, okay. We then had planned an awards night where we were bringing all of the people of the industry together for a night. So we were informed that event was going to be picketed, and that event was cancelled, and Shelburne Park racing didn't stop that night. So when that information was presented to the board, a decision was made by the board to cease racing in Harold's Cross. The executive did risk analysis on this, and part of the risk analysis and looking at this, we had been advised by the property people that that vacant possession was very important in realising value, and I think there have been protests in other areas in this country. So based on a risk analysis, we decided to choose the path to close Harold's Cross immediately, and we executed or did that job immediately after the board decision. The board decided at 9:45, and we proceeded to do it. Do it then. And if I can answer.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Before I ask another one, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. On reflection. Sorry, I regret absolutely, and IGB regrets the inconvenience to many genuine Greyhound people in Dublin. And as we said earlier, as the chairman said earlier, we bend over backwards, and we accept that people who lived and were part of the infrastructure of Harold's Cross were discommoded, and we're sorry about that.
But you said you may have done things differently.
Yeah.
What would you have done differently?
Well, one thing we'd have definitely done differently was we'd have had some involvement by the board of Harold's Cross in the decision making. That's one thing we'd have done differently. But
at least you could say that you're disrespectful to the board of Harold's Cross. I'm speaking now. That you, as a board of IGB, were disrespectful to the board of Harold's Cross. That's the least you could say.
Well, perhaps you can say that. Can I just explain, though? The decision to cease racing was a matter for the IGB board. The other aspects, and a meeting was arranged with the board then afterwards. Well, if you're, I'll accept your point of view.
Well, from what I'm hearing from people, and just they were told, and the padlocks up on, moved in, took away material, and so the racing couldn't continue. So, to me, for a board that had been there for years and run a good, as I said, the third biggest dealer in Ireland, I think, track, and so all of a sudden gone. Anyway, what's going through it? I want to know. I just want to move on. What's your proposal now with the problem that's going on now and the protests that are going on and picketing that's going on in Shelbourne? What's your plans to try to alleviate all this problem that's going on now and try to bring everyone on board? I believe you're losing 100,000 a week, is there something, on funding. That has serious consequences for the board for next year's estimates. And what's your plans going forward to try to sort this whole problem out?
Deputy, since the gravity of the situation is very apparent to IGB, there was a call by the former Taoiseach, Brian Cowan, and Ivan Yates to enter mediation, or to ask that Kieran Mulvey do mediation between the two parties. An attempt, I think 2 meetings were held with Mr Mulvey. He wasn't able to broker a solution. Informal contacts have been going on with them ever since, and also with Mr Mulvey. I was speaking to Mr Mulvey on Monday to see would he become back involved in it. Deputy, we need a solution, and we'll do anything we can to find a solution.
I mean, there's damage being done to the industry by why this is going on, and financially and breeding and every other way across the board. We depend on the English market a lot, and this is going on, and there's a lot of disquiet about it, and it has to be brought to some kind of conclusion sooner rather than later, or the permanent damage will be done.
Through the chair, I completely accept your point of view, Deputy.
Okay. Just we'll move on to other mundane matters. From figures I received, I understand that the IGB funding allocation has increased significantly by roughly 2.75 million from 2014 to 2015. And this has come back to our Deputy Bob. But the allocation of prize money to greyhound owners was reduced by 800,000. Indeed, it seems that total prize money paid in 2015 was 6.67 million. This is figures figures I have, which is down almost 50% of what was paid in 2007. 50% reduction on what was keeping the greyhound industry going on the ground, prize money, etc., where people won a few bob to keep them going, keep them viable. Can you explain the steady reduction in prize money paid to owners, in particular for the period between 2014 to 2015, and has the money paid to owners increased in 2016, which you have mentioned already? Do you see the prize money allocation increasing for this year, next year, and going forward? Because prize money is the bread for the industry and the ordinary Joe Soap on the ground.
Yeah, to confirm to the Deputy that prize money has increased by 25% with the average race grant.
Do you accept the 50% reduction in the figures I gave you?
From
2007 to 15. 50% reduction in prize money, that's massive money.
Well, there's an inference there that the IGB had the money and we refused to pay it out. That's not the case. In that time,
but you're hitting the people that are dependent on it. I mean, the people that's the meat and bone of your own industry. You're hitting them by reducing 50% prize money. Sure, you have not looked elsewhere to cut your costs without hitting the prize money. But I'm told by people that are dependent on this. I was talking to a breeder, a genuine man who's in it all his life. He has about 15 bitches. He runs a few towns. He was getting a few bob. He was able to survive. This all disappeared in 5 years, 6 years, and now he's not able to keep going. And when you talk about one individual,
I understand what the Deputy is saying. I'm a country boy myself, so I know exactly where you're coming from. But you can only pay out what you make. In that time frame, the Horse and Greyhound Fund was reduced down to €4.4 million. In 2014, the Horse and Greyhound Fund stood at 10.8. I think in 2007, it was up near €14.5 million. The number of races has fallen as well. There's a cumulative fall of 7,700 races. And nearly 5,000 of those rose in the years 2009 to 2011. And I mentioned previously about Indicon further reducing or recommended to reduce race meetings where the night was just loss making. Another contributor to prize money is sponsorship. A sponsorship has fallen by €1.3 million in that time frame. And €1.2 million of that drop was between 2008 and 2010. And we've been there, we don't want to go back to that times. And in the other part of it as well is €4.2 million of operating surpluses of the IGB had to be retained to pay bank interest of €3.5 million and 750,000 in bank repayments. That's a massive figure. That €4.2 million has to be set aside to pay interest on a loan.
You agree with saying then the money that was going to the prize money went into settling the debt, and that's where the money went instead of going to the.
And that might explain where the board are going in respect to trying to sell the assets, because €4.2 million is an absolute hell of a amount of money to be going into in respect of bank debt and interest.
Okay. Deputy Burke there mentioned again about the cost of legal fees. I couldn't ever go 250% of an increase. I mean, I know you kind of an explanation, but that's massive money, 250% of an increase at a time when you are under pressure, under strain financially. I mean, that sounds incredible, 250% of an increase.
As I explained to Deputy Burke, the cost of the case in 2015 between the settlement, the IGB costs and all the cost that goes with it was in the region of €0.9 million. That followed another nearly €100,000 of legal fees in the previous year.
Why were these legal cases there? Why was there some bad management or something that all these legal cases were there? Why are they legal?
I'm not a solicitor, so I won't be in a position to comment like that. You have to follow the best legal advice. It takes two parties to reach any settlement. That settlement was reached on the steps of the High Court in 2015. In October 2015, for the date. I think it's end of October 15.
And are the legal fees going to be that high going forward?
No, as I said there to Deputy Burke again, the legal fees, they're not recurring. My experience over the last number of years is there's a problem, we resolve it. We're trying to not have it recur again. Legal fees we are a self-regulatory body, so there's always going to be an undercurrent of legal fees in respect of the IGB, but not to the value that was there in 2015, like $1.4 million in total legal and professional fees. It's just not sustainable.
Okay, I want to move on because my time is getting short.
Last two questions, Deputy, and then we can come back in.
I have a lot more, but I know I won't reach them all.
Deputy, we'll be going around the second time.
Okay, fair enough. I go with one or two more then. Okay. The Agriculture Committee previously recommended that IGB should provide a detailed update on its progress towards achieving the financial targets which underpin its strategic business plan 2003-2017, which is a 14-year period. Based on the recent policy changes made by the IGB to implement recommendations of the Indicon review, has IGB submitted an up-to-date to the Attorney General or to the AG Committee, Agriculture Committee, on progress towards achieving its financial targets? This is, I want to ask that question. The plan, Strategic Business Plan 2003-2017, which covers 14 period.
As I said, we offer a regular...
Have you gone back to the Agriculture Committee with that plan?
I'm not aware of that, no, Deputy. I'm not aware of a reporter's contract. We do regularly update our financials and where we are in respect of the plan and where we are with Indicon. We do submit them to the department. Our monthly accounts go to the department. We go send monthly accounts to the department. We send quarterly accounts to the department, and we offer the department an update in respect of Indicon, how we're getting on with Indicon. But as regards whether that report went back to the Agriculture Committee, shouldn't
you know that as an executive?
We should know that, but I don't have.
Shouldn't someone here be able to answer that question? A business plan and how you're going forward.
I don't have the answer. I just don't have.
Is there anybody here who can answer that question? Because in our time inside here, I don't think there's ever been a case where somebody has come in like this and hasn't been able to answer questions.
Sounds very negative if no one is able to answer or even put even an attempt to answer.
I think, as I said earlier, we had a strategic plan that expires this year.
Answer your specific question, please.
I understand your specific question, Deputy, is have we a plan going forward?
Yes,
yes, we have.
Which you told the Agriculture Committee you would prefer produce.
I don't know that, but what I'm saying is we have a plan now, and I think Mike might have misunderstood your question. We have a plan, and the plan is tied into the sale of Harts Cross, getting our finances in order, and there are a number of variations.
That doesn't sound much like a business plan. That's just getting out of the immediate problem you have, debt problem you have. That's
no, that's where we are. And as I said to you, we're in the process of starting a 5-year strategic plan that we've continually put in place.
Just for clarity, sorry to interrupt. The Deputy has asked a very specific question based on the Agriculture Committee and statement to the Agriculture Committee. Can we have a clear answer? Either you have a plan and it's published, or you don't, or else nobody knows about it.
If you haven't been able to tell me now, can you inform us by writing or written?
There is a business plan published. Like the business plan. Our business plan was updated with Indicon, and that Indicon is published on our website. What the Deputy referred to was an update on that plan, if I understand you correctly, to the Agricultural Committee.
That's right, yes.
And I don't know.
Sorry, this is incredible. What do you mean you don't know? It's either a yes or no. And if it is, where is it?
I can't answer yes or no because I wasn't aware of the outstanding
Well, you're subject to the Committee of Agriculture, you're subject to the Department of Agriculture because that's what gives you the money, and you're subject to go back to them when they request something from the Committee, which is an all-party Commission of Agriculture, and you give a commitment to your council, I have in front of me, and I just want to know, did you go back to the Committee of Agriculture with that plan, or are there any such thing as a business plan, as has been said here? And I took this on face value. I took this down yesterday evening and I researched this.
I'd say the business plan, we have a business plan and I've outlined it earlier, but the business plan we had yesterday evening is different for Monday morning because our financial situation has dramatically changed. So yes, you're right, a new business plan is now required.
Deputy Creed, or sorry, Mr. Creed, with giving you an elevation there, it's where you're sitting. But with all due respect, I think there's a specific question relating to a commitment in the Agriculture Committee, which the representatives here don't know the answer to be fair.
I find it unbelievable they don't even realise that this is there, that they went in front of an Agriculture Committee and gave a commitment, and now you don't even know about it. But that's what I have here, and I took it off of the Agriculture Committee. Anyway, we move on. I just want to know about...
Sorry, Mr. Gleeson may want to state, may want to
Mr. Gleeson,
save the colleagues behind you.
Mr. Gleeson, you might be able to put some meat on the bone here.
Yeah, well, before Mr. Gleeson comes in, I mean, I find it incredible that there is, from what I've listened so far, I know I get a chance to come in, a lot of confusion between answers that the witnesses are giving from the same organisation. And I find that incredible. And that sets alarm bells off for me, but I'll get a chance to come in.
You come in now in a minute, Deputy. I share your concerns. Mr. Gleeson first, and then Mr. Aylward, and you'll be able to come in a second time, Mr. Aylward, or Deputy Aylward. Mr. Gleeson.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure whether I can add clarity, but I'll try. There's a business plan from 2012 to 2017. Now, the landscape has changed utterly since then. We did receive alternative figures in 2015, a kind of an update in light of proposals to sell Harold's Cross. And as a condition of the provision of funding this year, we have asked for a comprehensive business plan to be prepared in 2017. The original one was to expire anyway in 2017. But the reality is that between 2014 and now, there has been a roadmap outlined for the development of the sector and its preservation, to be frank, and that has been the Indicon report. And the board has an action plan for the implementation of Indicon. So, I mean, in terms of what the Ag Committee asked for, I'm not sure what you're reading from, but I mean, the convention is that a committee would request somebody to come in and present to them on business proposals.
It's not that long ago, though.
Well, I'm quite sure that the board would be prepared to do that if requested to.
Can I ask you, Mr. Gleeson, as the Department of Agriculture, who's the paymaster and gives out the money, are you happy with the Irish Greyhound Board and the performance and the way they run their business? Are you happy every year to sign off and give them the money? And are you happy with, like, just this business plan? Are you happy with all the procedures and the way the procedures are going? Or have you question marks over 14.5 million that's been spent that you're responsible for giving to them? I think we asked this ourselves to you when you were in front of us. We asked this question, and I don't think we were satisfied with the answer you gave either.
Well, I think
as an oversight,
the answer I give now is the same as the answer I gave then, which is that nobody is happy with the financial performance of the sector over the last several years. So I don't think anybody is. I don't think the board is.
Yes, a very specific question. Are you happy as the officer in the department? I know the Secretary General is the accounting officer, to be fair, but are you happy to sign off on the funding that taxpayers give to this organisation, giving obviously the evidence today and given what you've already stated? And the fact that you said in evidence the last time you were in here that you meet them once a year.
Well, I mean, that's me personally, Deputy. There's a lot of interaction. There's a division that deals with this, and there's a lot of interaction with Board and Gun on a regular basis, on a weekly basis. There are 2 formal governance meetings every year. So there is a significant degree of interaction between the department and the board. I mean, I said this the last time I was here, and it remains the case. I'm not happy with the financial performance of the sector. But there is a
Are you happy with the financial performance of Board Nagan?
Yeah,
answer the question,
well,
please.
I'm going to answer the question.
Okay.
The position is that the board inherited an almost impossible situation. Certainly a very...
with the old board as well. When the paymasters and the old board are in charge of the runner as well. When we say if there were a bad board or...
Well, if you want to go back to Limerick and that some of the early decisions in Limerick were made as early as 2005. It was a different board. It was a different department, and that's just factually correct. There's no doubt that some of those decisions laid the seeds for great financial difficulty, which were exacerbated by a recession from 2008 on. So if you wanted to make an investment at the wrong time, I suppose that's the reality of what happened. So the board has inherited a difficult situation. It's trying to navigate its way through that. I don't believe there are any easy solutions here. So I think they're doing a very difficult job in difficult circumstances.
There's a lot of taxpayers' money involved, and we are here to make sure the taxpayers' money is being spent properly and is accountable and above board, and that's what we're here for, and that's our job, and that's what we're picked here to do, and that's all we're trying to do, is clarify that money is being spent right and going in the right direction, and you as a part of the oversight should be making sure of that.
No,
Sorry, Chairman. I mean, and part of the difficulty is, and some of the issues that are being raised here, which are perfectly legitimate, is that when you don't have money, you have to make difficult decisions. And the fact is that there's a very significant debt which is costing a lot to service. I mean, as far as I'm aware, there were between 2 and 3 million involved in covering interest and bank debt over the last 2 years. That's money that otherwise could have gone into prize money, breeders' incentives, investments in stadia. So this thing is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, I mean, I can't say I'm happy with the situation, but I'm quite sure that the board, the interim chief executive, would say exactly the same thing.
Just a matter of clarification, then I'll let Mr. Aylward, or Deputy Aylward conclude. You said that obviously there's historical issues here in its previous board and change of departments and stuff like that. But did you, I mean, obviously the issue of the decision to build Limerick is a critical component of this, and we all understand that. I think that's probably one thing we all agree on, frankly. But personally, I think there's much more issues bigger than that as well. But maybe Mr. Greeley, I mean, the previous chief executive, there was a request to extend that person's, who was the decision maker in relation to this, the building of Limerick. There was a request from the Department of Agriculture to DEPR to extend the contract. So if there was concerns in relation to this, why did the Department of Agriculture write to DEPR, Department of Public Expenditure for everyone in the audience, requesting an extension of the CEO who made the decision to actually build Limerick in the first place?
Well, that's a fair question.
I think Mr. Greeley might want to answer that as well.
Well, I mean, if you don't mind,
go ahead.
I'll take it if you don't mind. So, I mean, that's a fair question, but it's not the CEO that made the decision to build Limerick. It's the board that makes those decisions.
Obviously, party to the decision.
Well, of course, and would have made recommendations. And there was a case made at the time.
The CEO at the time when the industry was collapsing.
I accept that, and having come through a very difficult time and a difficult recession, but at the time, a case was made by the board for the extension of the contract of the CEO based on the submission of a business plan, on the need for continuity, and I believe that some of the proposals for online services, for commingling, that this individual had particular expertise in that IT element. So that was the basis of the submission made, and it was on that basis that we agreed to an extension. Ultimately, the CEO didn't accept the post and he wasn't appointed.
Yeah, but it does sound strange that given the evidence given here today by yourself in relation to the fact that this word legacy, which it's not something I respect, but this word legacy issues, and it's a previous board, that it was the same department that actually asked for the CEO of that previous board to have their contract extended based on their performance.
Well, we asked for the extension based on a submission made by the board, which at the time we felt had some merit and was for the need.
And it's consistent with the evidence given previously by the Department of Agriculture and now given today by the Department of Agriculture in relation to a hands-off approach, I would say. But also it's a volte-face in relation to policy, because didn't the department, in relation to the review that was conducted in 2010 of the national state assets and liabilities, didn't the department say that a disposal of assets in relation to Bord na Gan would be something that would have a very negative impact on the industry? So the Department of Agriculture in 2010 felt any asset sale would be negative for the industry, but now supports it, presumably?
Well, Deputy, I can't be held accountable for
what
somebody said in 2010.
Well,
I mean, since 2010, that's a long time ago, and since then the landscape has changed.
Same CEOs.
We had somebody objective look at this situation, and there's no ideology at play here. Nobody wants to dispose of assets if it's avoidable. But we asked for an independent company to take an objective look at the sector because we knew there were financial problems. And they took a view and they made a series of recommendations about improving the financial situation and governance and regulation. And that report was broadly accepted by ministers at the time when it was produced in 2014.
Yeah, but just, and Mr. Bobby or Deputy Aylward come in, but just to quote, 90 million from the department, 90 million has been invested in bringing Stadia up to a high standard. It's highly unlikely this investment will be recovered in an open market. and yet we have a decision in the last 48 hours. Deputy Aylward.
For now, anyway. Last question for now. Just the Indicon report again. Yeah, for now, anyway. And after the Indicon report, the Rockford Agriculture Committee recommended that the Irish Greyhound Board facilitate meetings with industry representatives of stakeholders such as the Greyhound Owners and Breeders Federation. And that's one of the complaints I've got now recently. You as a board and as an executive are ignoring the stakeholders out there. Completely ignore them. You won't meet them. I've been told you won't meet them. You won't converse them. You won't tell them what's going on. You're just, and here is a recommendation from the Indicon report from the Agriculture Committee that you sit down with them and discuss the future of the plan that's put forward. And yet, since then, I don't know how long ago since this recommendation came from the Agriculture Committee, I think it was last year, I'm not sure, January last year, 2016, you have never met them since and you've completely ignored them. That's what I'm being told, and I want clarification on that.
Through the Chair, that's completely, Deputy, inaccurate.
Well, someone must be telling me different then.
In December 2015, we set up a forum. Just by way of a small bit of background, the industry is very splintered. There are huge numbers of. The GOBA is recognised as a national. It represents, but they're very splintered. Most of the GOBAs, or a number of the GOBAs around the country, are not affiliated to the national GOBA. There are several other, just to name a few, the GRII, the Phoenix Group and all the rest. So it had become impossible to meet everybody. I go racing 3 or 4 nights a week and I'm available to talk to anybody. But it was
can you say, have you met any of the groups over the last 12 months? No. Can you give me an example?
Would you allow me finish, Deputy, please? So, as a board, in agreement with the executive, we decided to set up a forum where we would invite 2 members from each of the different groups to come into Limerick, we'd sit down and we'd meet with them. And, you know, whatever we had to divvy out, we would give them the background, we would be very open, very transparent. And we had 1 in December, and I think we had 3 last year, either 2 or 3. So there was a forum there. This was done, I discussed it with the junior minister who has responsibility for the greyhound industry. He thought it was an excellent idea.
Just for clarity, so that everyone knows who you're talking about. Deputy Doyle? Or Minister Doyle?
Minister Doyle, yeah, sorry. Yeah, and I discussed it, the board, we discussed it with him. He was very supportive of that idea to a level that he came along one night and made himself available for 4 hours to meet the different components of the industry. When I got involved in this industry, Deputy, the one thing I wanted to do was, with the board, with the executive, was to unite the industry. It's been an impossible task. And it was, if you like, that was the idea, by putting that in place, that we would get in all the different colours, all the people with different ideas, but it doesn't seem to have worked.
Right, how often did the forum meet, and how many of these 2 for all the different groups, how many turned up?
I think we had 1 meeting that we met all the groups individually over a 12-hour period in December 15, and we had either 2 or 3 meetings last year. Not all the groups turned up. About 75% of the groups invited turned up.
And did any good come out of it? I mean, the report and the Indicon report, was that discussed, and going forward for the industry, was that discussed, and were the points of views taken on board from these representatives that were there?
It was, and I felt that the forum had the capacity to be a success. But the problem was, and the problem still remains, that different groups have different agendas. And sometimes they're completely opposed to each other. And that was the biggest individual problem, that we couldn't get the industry going into one direction.